Hey everyone, I'm Tiffany and welcome to the Wise Skies channel. Today I have one of my very best friends and dearest humans on the planet talking on the podcast with me. Welcome back, Leisha Barnett.
Hello.
Good.
Love you.
Love you, love you. And so if you're new to the channel, Wise Skies is a spiritual development agency. We offer classes and sessions in astrology, human design, and psychic development. And so today our big topic is plants, animals, and insects in human design, which we are both so excited to share with you guys about. But I wanted to do a little housekeeping before we jump in, because we have a new cadence going on in our workshops. And so the new cadence is that first Saturdays at noon Central, there will be a free astrology workshop. That means everybody can come to it. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to pay. You can sign up for it, because the last time we offered a free astrology workshop, it sold out in 24 hours. We had all of the seats gone. So you do need to sign up at wiseskiescollective.com on the classes tab. But the first Saturdays at noon, free astrology. The first Thursdays at noon will be our human design workshop that Leisha is going to lead. And then the third Thursdays at 6 o'clock at night will be your psychic development class. And the reason we did that is because we took feedback that some of you guys just really like doing it on Saturdays. Some of you really like doing them in the middle of the day, and some of you prefer evening after work time. And so we were trying to kind of cover all of the bases with that. When we made that shift, I got excited, because what we did is that Leisha and I went through each of the months and we made like a kind of a topic header theme for the month. And then each of the astrology, human design, and psychic development flowed under that particular topic. And we are recording for ahead of time for the month of April, which is all about your cosmic nature. So we have a nature theme going on, and this month is a little different. So April 1st, I'm going to be teaching about the astrology of beekeeping, and I'm actually going to be beekeeping that day. So I might have some show and tell things for you. And then just the planetary rulerships of the different aspects of beekeeping. We are shifting the HD one this month to April 13th because there was a school holiday. And so we just needed some flexibility on that. And so April 13th, Leisha is going to teach plants, animals, and insects in human design. And then on April 20th, I'm going to do nature readings. And so I'm going to teach you guys how I was taught to do tea leaf readings, readings with crystals, being outside in nature. And so it's going to be a nice, fun month of, connecting with nature, really. So, Leisha, before we get going, I thought you could reintroduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your design, some of the classes that you've been taking, and some of the things that you are excited about in HD.
Yes. So I am in human design. I have the design of a 1-3 splenic projector. I have one channel. For those of us that are familiar with human design, it's the channel of wavelength of talent. And so I have two centers defined. So I'm very open in the human design kind of realm. And that's been a whole journey in life. I'm almost finished with it's kind of an extensive program for the human design analyst certification. And I'm super excited. It's important to me as kind of the investigator profile, wanting that solid foundation, right? Like I want the depth, I want the solid foundation, to have been taking it from people that studied with the founder and kind of person that brought human design to humanity, studied with him themselves. And they've been in human design for decades. And so to me, that's very valuable as people that are living this, living as themselves, authentically for decades. So I'm almost done with that certification, which has been just mind-blowing. We've studied, of course, all the foundational information of the body graph and the origin of human design, and also partnerships, how charts connect, and we've done some different classes and some different explorations and some readings with that, where it's, say it's my chart, Tiffany's chart, and then what does our chart look like together? Mm-hmm. So I've gotten some really in-depth, knowledge and experimentation with that has been, again, life-changing. We also, and you can do it with your kids, you can do it with your parents, whether they're still on this earthly plane or not. We've also studied yeah, just a lot of different things in human design. Now, I will say that this topic, this nature topic that we're talking about this month, which we just Tiffany and I just got all excited about it and talked about it before the podcast, um, is something that I have not gone in depth with classes. However, I, have my own I'm ridiculous with my resources of human design and things that I study constantly. And so I really enjoy like looking at plants and what is their design and why do we connect and how do we connect and what's the potential there, and with my pets and different things. So I'm really excited to kind of dive into some of the at least just the basics of some of that, so that we can start to it almost like changes the frame that we're looking at, that I'm looking at everything through. And so that changes everything when you change the lens, right? So I'm excited to dive into that.
Oh
So
my God.
there's me as a general. Yes.
I love it. No, that's a great snapshot. So Leisha is a 1-3 splenic projector, and I am a 3-5 manifesting generator. And so we make a good team.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I know that our topic today, we're going to stay focused on insects, plants, and animals. But just to give you guys an outline so that you know what to expect, that what we're going to be talking about, I'm going to ask Leisha a little bit about her dream rave, the dream rave chart. I'm going to ask about what's different about the charts of plants, insects, and animals. I'm going to ask, what if we don't know the birth time? Oh my gosh, you're going to get her answer on that. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to learn in her class coming up on the 13th of April. And just to set the stage a little bit, I just want to remind you guys that everything has a birth chart. Everything was born at a moment in time, right? And so if you look at it through the lens of astrology or human design, there's still like an imprint of your soul or of an element of something being born. Your business has a birth chart. Your move to a new house has a new territory birth chart. Starting a new garden has its own birth chart, its own feng shui, its own address numerology, and you can use and work with all of these fun little metaphysical agendas to make decisions on how you want to interact with nature and with your world and with your nature. So I was reading this awesome book, and I wanted to read a little quote before we get into the questions here that reminded me a lot of human design and the entry process. And it says, everything in the world is a crystallization of liquid light. I'm the light of the world, and your awareness of being is the liquid light of the world, which crystallizes into conceptions you have of yourself. Your unconditioned awareness being first conceived itself in liquid light, which is the initial velocity of the universe. All things from highest to lowest vibrations, expressions of life, all of the things, lowest to highest, highest to lowest, all of the vibrations are nothing more than expressions of this initial velocity. And there are different expressions or velocities of this one substance, this one liquid light. And all things are crystallized liquid light. And the differentiation or the infinity of expression is caused by the perceiver's desire to know himself. This automatically determines the velocity necessary to conceive that which you perceive yourself to be. The world is an ocean of liquid light and countless different states of crystallization. Do you love that?
Light thing. Oh, the liquid light thing. Just, it's like, can we get a t-shirt with like liquid light just for everyone?
I'm just crystallized liquid light walking around, trying to know myself. I thought it's just such a poignant thing. It's like there are different velocities needed for we are all just different forms of this liquid light. And the reason that blew my mind is that's what I say in my sessions, right? Like I visualize white liquid light coming down around and through you, down around and through me. And reading that was such a poignant thing for me, because it's like we are born, projects are born, and we are of the same source. We are of the same substance. That quote is loosely written by me from the book. Sorry. Your Faith is Your Fortune by Neville Goddard. So not for everybody, but that's what I was into. And I really like that little segment because it reminds us of we're just looking at snapshots of time in these different prisms, not prisons. And I pulled this from your class, Leisha. You said that we're made of the same components that make up our Earth and stars. We're made of the same stuff. We are star stuff. And so what are we going to learn from ourselves by looking at nature? Why do we need to discover ourselves so badly, this mystery, right? And so, okay. So I just wanted to do that to set the stage. And any thoughts on that?
Well, I just when we say that we're made of the same stuff as, as the stars, as our Earth, it's like what I love about, well, all of these different tools, but specifically what I love about human design is that it is all of these ancient kind of, metaphysical kind of Eastern type of modalities and seeings and systems, and it matches them exactly with modern science, each one of them. So when we say we're made of Earth and stars, literally we are made of neutrinos, which are now we can see in the scientific literature for a few decades now, that's exactly what the stardust is. So we're not only made of it, but we're impacted by it, which is why the moment of birth, has a lot of data that we can see, whether it's, our own being or the plant that's, the monstera that's behind me or the monstera that's behind Tiffany.
Right.
And so it just, and it's that thing of, I love how you were saying, we're all made of liquid light. It's kind of this duality where we are all made of this same substance. Now, the differentiation comes in when it's like the different velocities, the different, I received these certain elements in this certain configuration. Tiffany received these certain elements in this configuration. So it's almost like we're all one and we're also all differentiated. So I just love that kind of the juxtaposition of all of that. Like it's seen throughout life,
Right.
So that's what made me. And the other thing that it makes me think of is when, we look at tarot, we look at the tarot, we look at the astrology, we look at all these different, imprinting and human design. It allows us, it's my favorite quote is this Carl Jung quote of, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And how little did I know back, in 2009, when I started working with this quote and teaching different things around that, how deep and how layered and how the unfolding would go in my own life with that. So what I love about it is like when you get to see these things, like the design of plants, animals, insects, how we connect, the tarot, the astrology, the fact that we're liquid light, all these things they're in our unconscious, and it allows us to pull them out and put them on the table. And when they're put out and put on the table, now they're conscious. So we can integrate them and differentiate and be, and digest them and alchemize them instead of it's just running stuff and we aren't aware of it. So that's what I love about all of these things that I feel like are sort of working together and allowing us to access that unconscious energy that's at work in all of our lives.
Totally. Get out of the machine and into the new machine.
Yes, pull it out, put it on the table. Let's make a meal out of it. Let's eat it up. Yeah, totally.
I love it. Okay, so into the topics of the day. Most of you guys listening are going to be aware that if you have at the time of your birth, you have an astrology chart, right? This is where the planets were in the sky at the time of your birth. And the same thing with human design. It's split up into it's split up differently in a lot of ways, but you have a chart to look at different elements of, and it's pretty standard, right? Like everybody has these same elements that light up in different ways. But what's cool about human design that astrology doesn't have is that they have what's called a dream rave. And I thought you could talk a little bit about the difference between the waking chart and the dream chart.
Yeah, totally. So there's a few different things about the dream rave, and I almost feel like we should do like a whole thing on that.
Totally, absolutely.
Separately, right? Like, so
yes.
we'll just put a pin in that. But our form changes when we are asleep, first of all. So if you are familiar with the way that we are waking kind of body graph, it's these two imprints of at birth where all the planets and positions were. and also 3 months before that, which is sort of the unconscious. It gives us the specifics of some of the unconscious in each of our individual designs. So we have 9 centers when we're awake. We're a 9-centered being. We have 9-centered consciousness. And, that's evolved from 7-centered, 7-chakra consciousness, which, several hundred years ago, there was a mutation in humanity where, we evolved from 7-centered, strategic, conquering our environment consciousness to 9-centered, which is about awareness, passenger consciousness, and things like that. So when we go to sleep, when we lay down, we actually go into this 5-centered form. And that's actually, interestingly enough, to kind of tie it to, is the same as mammals. Mammals are 5-centered beings. So there's no mind, there's no emotion, there's no ego or like willpower. We have 5 centers, and there's one more that there is not, which no, I guess that's it. 5. No, there's one more, but I don't know what it is right now. So we go into, a different form when we're asleep. It's kind of like, it's almost like how we were talking about the duality of differentiation versus kind of the oneness that we all are. At night, we're accessing the oneness. Like the oneness is kind of like, it's almost like bees, right? Like the hive mind is kind of, that's when that programming and energy is running through us when we're dreaming. But what we can see is you can actually pull up your specific chart of when you're sleeping, and you can see, there's these different realms, there's these different activations, there's different light and dark and sort of entities that will show up because of the way you're designed in your dreams. And one thing that I still almost like can't quite wrap my head around, but this is the information, right? And then we have to experiment with it. That's the whole thing of human design. The information is, it's not personal. Our dreams are not personal. They're actually just the consciousness of the collective, of the planet, of the neutrinos, of all of human, of the hive of humanity, kind of integrating into our awareness. So of course it seems personal because it's like, my mom's in there saying this about my grandma, like, and then I'm going over to this other thing that doesn't make any sense. So there's all these intricacies and mechanics to it. But what they're meant to do is to be shared.
Yeah.
So they're not meant to go, oh my God, this means that I'm internally blah. It's like, when I wake up, giving myself a moment to go get back into the awake 9-centered being. And then when I'm in response to share, when life asks me to share that, then share that. It may mean something to someone else. I may share something with Tiff and it's like, oh, this awareness, like, oh my gosh, I had this thing too. And like, it brings together things when we share. So that's kind of a general thing about like the dream rave that, again, we can go real deep on
multiverse, right? Like,
yes,
it's
exactly.
Thing. And I'm a prolific dreamer, right? And as we are going into this psychic catalyst class, meditation and dreaming are the 2 things where I want to start, because everybody accesses both. And so I think it's a super important topic. But for purposes of our talk, the idea is that you have on your birth chart, you have 9 centers. And then when you lay down, you have 5 centers, and they are lit up differently. Meaning there's different gates that are activated, different channels that are activated differently. And so, if you are like me and you wake up in the morning like this, like, it's a very shocking experience. There might be some things that are interesting to look at between your waking state and your sleeping state in the charts. So I've with Leisha's help, done a lot of discovery about why that might be, and made some adjustments on what I do when I wake up now. So sleeping, the reason why did I bring that up on this talk is because it has to do with what's different about plants, insects, and animals. And so this is really the meat of what we want to talk about. So I want you to share with us kind of the basic design elements of those 3.
Yes. So, in the class, in the Human Design Lounge that we'll do on the 13th, we'll pull up charts, we'll look at the mechanics, what gates are active and what aren't. And it's just like in human design, if you see the body graph, it's like all the same elements are there, all the same centers are there. However, we each have different activations in there, which means different things are kind of defined, different things are undefined. So it's kind of like that in plants, animals, and insects as well. But in the class, we'll start with like inanimate objects, an inanimate object, a crystal, like this candle, crystal, fluorite thing. It has a design. Those have a design. Everything has a potential for consciousness because it's all made of the stardust consciousness, liquid light in different forms, So, so even an inanimate object, it's hard to say, by the way, quickly, has a design. So we'll kind of look at that, the design of a cell, and it makes sense why, an inanimate object only has one center. It's the G center. It's identity, love, and direction. It's just itself. That's it. Bringing love and beauty into the world. So, just we can start. And I just want to, I know it's plants, animals, insects, but there's also fish, reptiles, so it's almost like I want to give an overview in the class about how that builds. So a cell has two centers, and it makes sense which gates it has potentially activated. And then
Which two centers?
which two centers? So a cell only has one channel, and it's the 515, the channel of rhythm and flow. It's fixed patterns with extremes. So me and you, Tiffany, we have that channel together. So we get in the flow, we have this rhythm that neither of us have all the time on our own. But we feel that when we're together. We're like, oh yeah, we're like, it's easy. We're just in this flow together. A cell has that one channel. It has the G center, so identity, love, and direction, and sacral. So in response, life force. It's life force in response to the fixed rhythms and patterns in nature and the extremes in weather patterns and, sun, dirt, being in the dirt in the dark, and then in the light, and then sometimes it's rain, freezing, snow, whatever. So it's so a cell, every cell has that blueprint,
You
every
said
cell
being in
has a
the
blueprint.
dirt, and I was like, I don't think I sent you like 50 memes in the middle of the night last
No,
night.
I'm halfway
Sorry.
through. Okay.
I was like, she's gonna be mad or love all of these.
No, I love it all.
But one of them is this little girl, and it's like clearly her mom or some caretaker is videoing her, and it's like, I was in the garden and look what I found, and she's like doing dirt angels and like dropping dirt in her eyeballs and in her face, and she's like
just
it's
tasting
everywhere.
it, eating it. She's like just in the inanimate object, the innocence, the spirit of the self, just...
Well, and what if something in that soil is activating something for her,
Yes,
like,
exactly. She's in the flow in that dirt. We
yeah,
all can be in the flow in that dirt.
I am gonna do some dirt angels this year,
right? Yes, I tell you, that's on the list now. Put it on the list, put it on the calendar. So that's really interesting, and we'll kind of look at more elements of that in the class. And then plants actually have 3 centers, and it all makes such logical sense when you start to see it and start to understand some of these concepts. It's the life force energy, which is the sacral, the G center, which is identity, love, and direction. It knows it's also, the G center is also beauty. So it's also you get this beauty from plants that if we stop and just see what is there, we really can access the beauty of the world, of life. And it's spleen, because it's like the intuitive response in the moment to, survive and kind of like respond to the different things that are coming in life. So, of course, already I can hear different things that I can learn from plants or from my dog, or from my cat, or from, from a cell, from a crystal, whatever. So
go back to plants for a minute, because I'm making a connection. So tell me the centers of the plant again.
So the plant is sacral, the G, so it's life force, sacral, G center, which is identity, love, and direction, beauty, spleen, which is intuition, spontaneity, like
health too,
instinct, right?
Survival.
Right, exactly. Survival, well-being. Yeah.
So the correlation I'm making, which is about when the plant kingdom, right? Like if you're looking in nature, for what's blooming and what is thriving, it's going to tell you, it's basically telling you, hey girl, you're going to need some plantain this year. Like, we're giving it to you, make you a tincture, make you a tea, do collect, you know, we're in abundance in this thing with this particular property, because there's an intelligence that's working with you. I really geeked out on the Anastasia books. I don't know if that makes you think less of me, guys, but I really liked them. And she goes into this whole thing where like she puts the seed in her mouth because the saliva gives information to the seed about the person, and you know, soaking your feet in water, and the detox that comes from that and giving that to the plants is a way for the plant to pick up the information for you to, you know, to work on your behalf. So you're watering it with something of yourself, and it's a place of information exchange. And same thing in India. Like, I'm not speaking for all of India just because, you know, but one of the first stories I got there was we were at a cow farm, Goa. We were at an eco village, and they have cows there. So not a cow farm at all, but an eco village. And one of the old stories is about, we would whisper into the cow, like the medicine man, the shaman of the time would whisper what ailment was going on, and the cow would go eat the appropriate vegetables, herbs, whatever for that ailment, come back, give of itself the milk to create the butter and the milk and the things needed to heal the people of the area. So lore, legend, you know, Anastasia is the Russian version, you got the Indian version, and maybe it's just all kooky crazy talk, but the idea is that there's kind of an information exchange going on between the intelligence of the plant kingdom and the intelligence of the people that are with those plants. And I think it was last summer, 2 summers ago, I was at my dad's, and there was a shit ton of yarrow and plantain. And I've never seen that on the property before. Now that could be I just wasn't looking. It could be that the bees were pollinating that on purpose. It could be that, you know, for whatever reason. But whenever there's a lot of something, if there's something in abundance, I feel like the plant, the intelligence of the plant is working on some level of benevolent assistance, right? I feel like my dad's going to hear that and make fun of me. But the idea is that there is some sort of intelligence going on between the two. And when you said splenic, it just reminded me about survival, about health, about intuition. And you can see a lot of people that are into plants are very intuitive type people. I think about like Ceremony Botanical Boutique, whatever, in Wimberley, one of our little favorite places we like to go. It is witchy. It is psychic. It is intuitive. When you go to pick out a crystal, when you go to pick up a new dog at the adoption place, or when a dog picks you and comes to your house, or cat, when you go plant shopping, there's an intuitive intelligence that's guiding you to that plant that you need, whether it's for your health, spleen, you know, or for just the beauty of its existence in your life. There's a Sharon Gannon quote that she says, you know, liberation isn't for everyone, but it might be for you. And I love that challenge, right? And from that book that she wrote, she also talks about feeding the birds in the morning. So the first thing that you do is an act of service to another being. And my version of feeding the birds is watering the plants. And so the first thing I do in the morning is like, I cannot freaking wait to go downstairs and see like what has grown a little, what has turned their head toward the sun a little, it lights me up to go water the plants in the morning. And it brings beauty and intelligence and health. And that's what happens when you talk, is I create a movie in my head. So I didn't know I was going to say any of that, and I didn't mean to take over your talk, but
no, I'm like writing things because that's what's happening now to me. Well, and when I studied herbalism, so there's a couple of things I want to throw in, because there's a whole thing with plant allies in human design, with the potential of like that. So I want to bring that up. But when I studied herbalism, there's this doctrine of signatures where there is definitely a communal relationship between humans and plants. And, that's why walnuts look like the brain, because when you eat the walnut, it's good for brain health. So there's a lot of different things like that where we are connected with plants. And not
Yeah.
only that, but it brings the beauty and love and well-being. And I also,
Well,
with
geek out on that.
yeah.
The walnut, like the brain, what are the other ones?
Oh, there's so many.
The
There's
lung one, like what was the one?
yes. Well, isn't it kale that looks? I don't think kale is good for. I don't have them all in my. Let me see if this.
I know, like look it up. Like there's the brain was the easiest one. Like things
Yeah,
like
walnuts with the brain always is in my head. But like, think about. Let's see. What are some examples? Yeah, ginger for your stomach. If you look at the bigger knob of ginger that trails off, it can be considered to resemble the stomach, which is good for indigestion, nausea, in like vomiting type situation, like eat the ginger, it helps the stomach. There's avocado for your uterus, which is interesting because it definitely has that shape.
Did you
It's
watch that
full of
Simpsons?
folate, potassium, which
Did you
no,
watch that?
I don't.
Oh, okay. So what he basically Homer lost all of their money and he was like Marge, you have to go donate your eggs. And she's like, why? You're like, no. And he's like, come on, Marge, it's uterus, not uter you.
That's funny. I don't know why I've never heard the joke of us from uterus before. It seems so obvious. Like, yeah, we should be making that joke. Yeah, ginkgo biloba for your brain. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different examples.
Totally.
So it made me think of that. And then also with what the information in human design, again, like you said, it could all be woo-woo, it could all be whatever. Either way, it makes the unconscious that we might not have been thinking about or aware of before, we can now go, oh, okay, well, that's an interesting idea. Now it's on the table, it's in my consciousness. So now I can see if that integrates into my being. What is true about that? What do I notice when I touch the plant? Like even in the morning, not even having to water the plants, just what human design says is that you can just touch the plants. And what I have done is I've started even just energetically like, how are you doing? May I touch your leaves? Because we're living together. So yes, I can put my beingness into the plant in the different ways you were suggesting, or talking about, Tiffany, but also can receive what the plant wants to give, and support the plant. And I have a defined spleen, so I could even be holding a plant that has an undefined spleen. Yes, it's mechanically they can have that activation, they have spleens, but like Ra Uru Hu says, you can walk through the forest and you're going to be stepping on some defined spleen plants, and some are going to not have defined spleens. So one thing I've tried in my house with plants is if I notice one's not doing good over there by himself, I'm like, maybe that one has an undefined spleen and needs to be next to some other plants. And I'll watch, does it start to thrive? Does it start to, I know
crazy.
it's wild.
I love
It's
it.
wild. But this is why even like forest bathing or like going for a walk in the woods, like you get, that kind of connection. You can hug a tree literally and get
With permission.
the flow. Yes, I always ask. And also, he says you don't even have to ingest the plants. So say you have a ginger plant that you just have in your house on your windowsill, and every day you touch it, connect with it, which by the way, the auras of plants, like humans, it goes way out, right? The plants are very close to the surface. So in order to interact with it, you would touch the leaves, and like I said, I like to ask, you like to ask, but every morning, just going out and I go over to my fiddle leaves, I go to my monstera and I'm like, you guys, how are you today? Oh, you look so beautiful. Like the love and beauty that they bring.
Yeah.
I have plants in every single room. I must have a plant in every single room, aloe in every room,
Crystals every room.
And those are the inanimate, which we'll also talk about. But yeah, it's just Ra says you don't even have to ingest the plant to get, like, that's the potential that's here, is you could just have the parsley, have the ginger, have the whatever, and you can just touch it and you have that connection with the plant. So I thought that was like, ooh, well, I love that. Yeah.
It's in our homeopathy group too, right? You don't have to take the medicine. You can write it on a piece of paper, like tape it to your water glass and ingest the frequency of it. right? So we can all just be breatharians and think about plants.
You don't need food. Everybody stop eating.
Yeah.
No, but yes. So it's really fascinating. And again, I wouldn't say either of us have all the answers. We've just like, it's like, well, let's just bring this out and see, okay, now it's not in the unconscious. I can actually like look at it and see, does this feel true? What do I notice? What are my plants doing? Are they thriving? Which ones, what's my relationship with these entities? Am I going out in nature and just seeing the beauty? Just smelling the plants, the trees, like the grass, wherever I am, we can find a spot to do that. So yeah,
and
go ahead.
Your consciousness changes it too. Like if you think about so first of all, the observer affects the experiment, one thing, right? And then two, I really like Masaru Emoto's work about water. And I got to see him when he was here in Austin, he came to Book People before he passed. But one thing I learned about him is that everywhere he goes to where, because he was a speaker that traveled the world, right, with his research about water. And he would go to the bodies of water of the areas where he spoke and would say blessings over the water, because his consciousness of that moment changes the consciousness of the water, which he was able to document, through the crystallization of water. But I feel like it's kind of the same thing with what we're talking about with plants, insects and mammals. It's like, yeah, there's an interesting thing to learn about that, but also know that your consciousness changes them too. And it's just an interesting interplay, right?
Love that.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us about
yes. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So we got really excited about plants. Okay.
Yeah.
So insects have 4 centers. So they also have the throat, which is interesting because it's almost like you think about it, like they go, like it's called they have gate 20, which in the kind of, when you look at the design of insects, it's like the eternal hum is kind of, it's what it is in our human body graph. The gate 20 is the gate of it's like intuitive clarity in the now. It's not intuitive clarity. It's hold on one sec, let me pull it up.
Yeah.
I want to tell you, it's contemplation, the gate of direction of the now. So that's what gate 20 is in the throat. And so it makes so much sense, right, when you hear it, because it's like, of course insects have this eternal hum in the now, with their G center, direction, identity, love, direction, beauty, their life force, and their well-being, like their survival spleen, so it kind of builds. And then of course, mammals have 5 centers. They also have the root, which is about kind of adrenalized struggle and fight for food and order in the now. They actually don't have a solar plexus. They're not emotional. They don't have a head center, an ajna center. They're not conceptualizing. We do a lot of personifying of our pets, but they're reacting to our emotions, and they want food and order in the now. That's like they're kind of the headline of the headline for mammals. So that's interesting to think about with our pets, because they often seem, we kind of the word, we personify them.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. I was struggling in the middle there. And so ever since learning that, I've just been like, oh, let me watch my pets. I have a dog and a cat, and let me watch this. And it's like, they are amplifying the emotions of what's going on around them in the humans.
Okay. So, I need to back up because I think you switched from insects to animals, and
I did real quick. Sorry.
So
the eternal
insects, hum. Yeah, the eternal hum, gate 20 in the now, right? Insects have this. And so the eternal hum, right? Like, you guys know that I'm a beekeeper, and that I'm going to be teaching some correlations of astrology and beekeeping. And there is the eternal hum there. And you better be in the now if you're working with some bees. You better not be thinking about the future or the past. You better, it activates the nowness in you. And it's not knowing this, right? Like, I didn't know you were going to say all that. But that's one thing that I say about the bees, is what I like about it is it makes me so present. Like, you have to be present. You have to be in the now when you're going in to work a hive or work with a colony. And the idea that they're non-emotional is great, Bees as an insect, it's really the only insect I can talk about. Like there's many other insects we could be talking about, but bees are a super organism, right? And so it's not like there's an individual persona. Now, I love to talk about the different castes of bees, right? Like we've got drones, we've got queens, we've got workers, and we've got winter bees. And so I feel like among the workers, there's all these tasks. There's the nurse bees, right? There's the bees that cool and heat the hive, that bring water droplets over with their little wings and make the hive the right temperature. There are the wax makers. There are the foragers that go get honey, that go get nectar and pollen and then bring it back and it's made into honey. There are undertaker bees that take out the dead, and they do it differently. Some of the undertaker bees will line up their little dead. Some of them will like jettison them out of the hive. Some of them will fly them, like carry their dead bee and fly it away. And it's hard to think that they're non-emotional when they are different like that, right? And so the conversation I want to have offline is about queen. The genetics of the queen is a big deal in beekeeping. And so beekeeping, like in general, is divided between people that treat and people that try not to treat or don't treat and are chemical free. And that's a whole topic, right? But within all of beekeeping, whether you're treating or not, you've got the issue of the queen. And if the queen's healthy, the whole hive is going to be healthy. But if she's not, it's going to create a certain temperament, a certain environment for pests and disease. It's going to create like all kinds of issues, right? And so you're working with the queen and her genetics. And so a lot of beekeepers, if you have a situation that's untenable, they'll just pop off the queen and put in a new queen. And there's a process for that. But the idea is that you are inserting new genetics into this super organism to create different traits as a whole. Now, the reason that I wanted to talk about it offline is because I want to give you some birth data for some of our queens and to see like what gates are activated, what centers are activated, and how does that match up with the health, wealth, and abundance of the hive. So
yes, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. So that you have that data and then you have experience with the hive characteristics, so we can kind of explore that and kind of see what themes come up. Oof.
And just observe, and what is there anyways, I have so many questions, and maybe we'll have that data by the time I do the beekeeping class, maybe I won't, but the eternal hum and being in the now. Bees are also associated with mediumship and connecting from this world to the next. And I didn't know that when I got into beekeeping, right? And so there's also this being in the present moment is really required when you're using all of your intuition and all of your, like, you can't use other mental faculties, right? So it's very interesting to hear you talk about that. Now,
and the gate 57, the bees have that gate, which we've discussed before because it's the gate of intuitive clarity. But when we were talking about insects, gate 57 is vibrational awareness. So I'm even going backwards and associating that with kind of different, connecting with different entities, connecting with different psychic kind of not things that we can just see.
Yes.
But like, it's like there is a vibrational awareness to that, to that kind of psychicness and mediumship kind of stuff. So it's really, I'm getting the chills. Like I'm having vibrational awareness right now about like, all of these different things that we can explore. Yeah.
Well, that's what psychic development is. It's just vibrational awareness, right? Like you're either raising your vibration or you're lowering it, or you're just so aware of your own vibration that you feel intensely when another vibration comes in, and so that's crazy. I love that. I love all of this so much. So I'm ready to move to, sorry I had to back us up, but so mammals now, what were you saying?
Mammals are, like we said, they're 5-centered. So again, if we think about earlier, when we brought up the dream rave, we turn into 5-centered beings. So we're almost like in our mammalian form as our pets, like as our dogs, our cats, our cows, our horses, whatever we have, right?
Mhm.
So, um, so that's just a noticing of like we're more like them. And you know, the body graph actually turns. I'm going to show it during the class. It turns just like when we're laying down, the
Mhm.
body graph turns like this. So then it's like, you know, the centers are kind of like we've got throat, G center, sacral, root, and spleen defined. Those are defined in mammals and in us when we're sleeping. So it's almost like if you notice something that that I took in from the information at some point, and I notice now with my pets, you'll notice we bend down to pet our dog, or we pick them up. So we become kind of, you know,
Five century.
five centered in a way, or that's how we can connect with them, or we pick them up. So we kind of are on the same sort of plane. So that's just an interesting thing to watch and to understand. It's like, I notice it and I'm just like, I'm going to go with it, you know?
That
So
really
again,
stuck
yeah.
with me because we have a dog that stands up. And so he's a big German Shepherd. He's a large ex-cop German Shepherd. And it's like he cannot help himself. Like you walk in the room and he stands up and he wants to hug you. It's bizarre and it's scary, which is great. Like it serves the purpose of intimidation when you're out in the country by yourself. But I've never forgot that when you taught me that the first time, because I'm like, it's not that, I mean, it is bad behavior, right? But now with that awareness, I'm like, fuck it. I'm giving him a hug. I don't care. Like,
Yeah, they want to get up on that same level. And maybe bending down to him might be might connect something for him if, you can get through the the upright German Shepherd first.
he just has so much angst, about that. Like he needs to be up and, right. And you have to watch the nose if you're going down, like that's a
Yeah.
whole thing. And
Yeah.
I have a rescue cat that the dog like loves to be mouthy on the cat, and like the cat thinks it's a dog. And so sometimes I feel like one of them's going to kill the other one. And then all of a sudden they're just like spooning. And I'm like, I guess they got it sorted out down there. But
Yeah.
when the
So
cat's
funny.
at a higher level than the dog, I think it's really agitating. Like they're on a different plane.
That's
You
interesting too, to
know?
kind of, yeah, I hadn't thought too much about that, but yes,
Mhm.
it's very clear in my pet. And you mentioned, and maybe it's like if we don't know the birth time of different creatures, um I mean, I just do best guess. I just say, okay, well, I got this monstera at the garden store on this date, because I actually took pictures of it and it was tiny, and now it's like 7 different plants that are huge. But I can generally put in, okay, I think it was around December 2020, that's when I took the pic in the cart of the monstera. So yeah,
Well,
I same thing
let
with
me
pets. Yeah.
clearly delineate. So let's
Thank you.
shift.
Yes.
It's okay because I want to help Lucy, who's doing our chapters later, to know where to go.
Yes.
So that's like, okay, we got through inanimate objects, cells, plants, insects, animals, and now I know it's really important to some people. Like, what if you don't know your plant, animal, insects birth time? What is, like, let's start the segment on how do you rectify birth time. And so you were just saying, like, maybe you kind of know when you bought this plant and therefore you know about what size it is, so you could kind of backtrack a little. But then I interrupted you. So what were you saying?
Yeah. So just to say, like, it's almost like with plants, it's like I mean, I would say with any of this, unless you have the actual time, which I feel like is very rare for
Yeah.
us to have the time that a bee was born. I mean, you probably know for the queens, but the time that my dog was born, I mean, I was a rescue. So like it could have been any point. So what I do, and even the plant, it's like what I did with my monstera is I went back and I found the picture that I took it in the cart when I was getting it at the garden store. And it was like tiny. And I was like, okay, it's probably was this many months old when it was that size. So I kind of backtracked a little bit. And then I could kind of put that in. So I almost feel like it has to be sort of kind of a guessing range. And you can put in a few different ones. Like the only software I've found um, that's pretty easily accessible to everyone is the genetic matrix. And I mean, it has its own issues, just to say that, but mostly I find that it is pretty accurate. And so you can go in there and create plant, animal, insect, fish, bird, reptile. And so again, I think just guessing, like I knew, when we got our cat from the rescue, both of my animals are rescues. They said, "Oh, we think she was born in May of 2014 or something like that." So I just kind of pick in the middle and see, and then you can kind of adjust the time and see if anything major changes. But what I saw in my cat is like, oh, that makes so much sense. She's got the gait of the fighter. She's always like leaping out and like swiping at Milo, the dog, whenever he walks by. And I'm like, why is she? And it's like, oh, she's got the fighting gait. Okay, that makes sense, And so you can start to see, so again, it's kind of you generally backtrack it and just kind of watch and like bring the conscious into the conscious and see what can integrate, with that awareness. So I don't think it's an exact thing unless you happen to have that birth time.
Yeah. And it's for observing anyways, right?
Exactly. It's just for awareness. Yeah.
Okay. I have a surprise ending. I have a deck, guys, that is the secret language of birds that was gifted to me by my buddy Fred Haas. Fred is on Insight Timer, HAAS, and he has some really awesome meditations. So if you are an Insight Timer type of yogi meditator, it's free, right? And so you can go on there and look up Fred, and he gave me this deck, and now I know why, because it's hard. It's not the first deck you pick up, because it's, first of all, it's cool. It's the secret language of birds, but it's so it has these beautiful images on it, but they're in French, and it's not intuitive to me. You can speak Spanish, not French. How's your French? You know French, don't you?
I took French in college. I would not say I'm as good as you are with Spanish at all. But...
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome. Full compliment there. Yeah.
I'll take it. So this is how I know there is a God, is because there's synchronicities in my world. That's how I come to believe and have my faith. And the card I pulled for us today, I did it ahead of time because, again, it's in French and I had to look it up, is the Empress. And as we are talking, Leisha and I are recording at this very moment, the new moon is in 0 degrees of Aries. The sun just moved into Aries, marking our spring equinox here in Texas. And this Empress card is the card of spring. This is the card of Mother Nature. It's the card of connecting to your cosmic nature. It's the card of connecting into, birth and this like freshness of life, and this connecting into like what we're talking about with plants, insects, and animals. And so in this deck, is it okay if I read a little bit?
Please do.
It's like slightly awkward to read, with anyways. Here in this one, it says the Empress represents the higher aspect of feminine energy, the Madonna, the Earth Mother, all those gentle and compassionate energies. In relation to this, approximately enough, the dove shares exactly the same meaning, without exception, all over the world, from America to where it counterbalances the hawk, to Mecca, where they enjoy a sacred status as a bird specially favored by Muhammad. However, as well as this nurturing aspect, the dove and its close cousin, the pigeon, symbolize not only motherhood, but also fertility, purely because of their ability to procreate prolifically. And it goes into talking about like the cooing of the dove is like the sounds of moms to babies. She goes on to talk about Aphrodite and Venus. The Empress in the Greek and Roman mythology has, the Aphrodite and Venus has the dove as her familiar. So I think like in Austin, maybe we would have a grackle as our familiar. but this is the dove of the Bible brings back the olive branch, right? The peace symbol. And I love the symbology of the Bible here, because if you think about like the ark and the symbology of the masculine and feminine of every creature that we embody, as a metaphor. So to wrap it all up, I'm going to go back to the quote that we started with from the Neville Goddard book. And it says, "Man is the ark, containing within himself the male-female principles of every living thing. The dove, or idea, which is sent out in man's attempt to embody his idea, Man's ideas resemble birds in flight, like the dove in the story, returning to the man, finding a place to rest with peace. I mean, what? Like
That all just tied together with all the different
things. So if you needed a message about the dove and peace, if you needed a message about polarity, masculine, feminine stuff that we love to talk about, if you needed a message about how to connect with your insects, plants, and animals differently, I hope this podcast has been super fun and entertaining for you guys. And I just want to go back over our dates real quick. The housekeeping for our next workshops in April, our theme is the cosmic nature. April 1st is the astrology of beekeeping and planetary rulers. April 13th is plants, animals, insects, and human design with Leisha. And April 20th is nature readings with me. So tea leaf readings and crystal readings. This onboards you into May. And in May, we're going to be talking about soul purpose as our theme. And so this is a big one because these are the reasons we look at astrology, human design, and psychic development, is to find our unique soul purpose. And that changes. You know, sometimes my purpose right now in this moment is to make a podcast with one of my very best friends on the planet. That's my purpose right now, right? My purpose in a minute is going to be to fuel this body. My purpose in a couple hours is going to be to give somebody a reading. But I'm going to be expressing myself through each of these things, right? Because I've got, there's different elements of my soul purpose in my chart that shine through me differently. But I just want you to know that you're not living your soul purpose. It's being expressed through you. But in May, we're going to talk about it like this. On May 3rd, Leisha is going to teach about incarnation crosses in human design, which is an awesome topic to look into. On the 6th, I'm going to be talking about the North Node in astrology. And so if you want to be studying in advance, you can check out Jan Spiller's book and on the North Node. And it's the best one out there. There's nothing that's going to be better than that ever written. It's the tops. And then May 18th, I'm going to be teaching about spirit guides and how to connect to spirit guides in terms of feeling connected to your soul purpose. And so if you are relating to this content of your cosmic nature and connecting to nature, it's going to flow nicely into your sense of purpose here on Earth, in this precious human body, in this precious, beautiful world that we live in. So I don't think we meant to do this, Leisha, but April is also the time of Earth Day, when we celebrate the Earth. And so I just want to say thank you to all of the earth keepers, the beekeepers, the gardeners, the herbalists, the sky watchers, you know, the people that are really here and being good stewards of this beautiful planet. And we see you and we love you. And that's really all I needed to get out. Is there anything that you feel is left unsaid?
No, I would just say, like, enjoy the beauty of the earth and all that is around us. It's like, just, you know, my kind of focus is like, stop and just see.
Mhm.
You know, so yeah, I feel like you covered that so beautifully, and that's kind of the thing that I'm walking away today with.
It's so funny because normally you're like the talker and I'm the bullet pointer, and you just like bullet point my chat. Yeah, you're like, enjoy the earth. And I'm like, that's what I meant.
The beauty. Yeah, the earth, the beauty, you know, 2 words, earth, beauty.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna stop our recording, guys. If you're new, check out Wise Skies at wiseskiescollective.com, and we look forward to reading for you or seeing you in class or as part of our membership. We're glad you're here, and namaste.